When did a helpful stranger turn out to be your worst nightmare? The moving truck disappeared around the corner, leaving me standing on the sidewalk with my 6-year-old daughter Amy, staring at our new house in Millbrook Heights. After 18 months of living in my mother's basement following the divorce, we finally had our own space again. Amy clutched her stuffed rabbit closer as she surveyed our new neighborhood, and I felt that familiar knot of anxiety in my stomach. Single mothers moving to unfamiliar places always carried that weight, the responsibility of keeping your child safe in a world full of strangers. What I didn't expect was the man who emerged from the house next door before we'd even unlocked our front door, already walking toward us. His name was David Brennan, and he seemed like exactly the kind of neighbor any single mother would want. Mid-40s, wearing a paint-stained polo shirt and work boots. He introduced himself while Amy hid behind my legs, explaining that he'd lived next door for 8 years and knew how overwhelming moving day could be. Before I could politely decline, he was already lifting boxes from our front porch, commenting on how heavy they were, and joking that I must have packed books in every single one. When Amy peeked out from behind me, he crouched down to her level and asked about her rabbit, complimenting its purple bow with the serious attention adults rarely gave children's treasures. By the time we'd carried the last box inside, I felt like I'd won the neighbor lottery. David seemed like the protective older brother I'd never had, someone who would watch out for us in this new place where everything felt uncertain. Over the following weeks, David's helpfulness became a constant presence in our lives that I came to depend on more than I should have. When our kitchen sink started leaking on a Sunday morning, he appeared at our door within minutes of my frustrated sigh, toolbox in hand and refusing any offer of payment. When Amy's bike tire went flat, he taught her how to use a tire pump, patiently showing her the proper technique while I watched from the kitchen window, grateful for the male role model she'd been missing since the divorce. His timing was always perfect, appearing just when we needed help most, as if he possessed some sixth sense for our daily struggles. David's knowledge about our neighborhood proved invaluable during those first months when everything felt foreign and overwhelming. He warned me about the aggressive dog 3 houses down that had a habit of escaping its yard, showed me the safest route for Amy to walk to school, and introduced me to the other families on our street with the easy confidence of someone who belonged. He seemed to anticipate our needs before we even realized we had them, appearing with a snow shovel before the first winter storm and offering to drive Amy to school when my car wouldn't start on a particularly cold morning. The boundaries between helpful neighbor and family friend began to blur as David became increasingly integrated into our daily routine. He had a key to our house for emergencies, something he'd suggested after a package delivery mix-up resulted in an expensive item sitting on our porch all day while we were out. Amy adored him, running to greet him whenever she saw him working in his yard and chattering about her school day, while he listened with the patient attention of a devoted uncle. When my work schedule changed and I needed someone to watch Amy for a few hours after school, David volunteered immediately, assuring me that he worked from home anyway and enjoyed the company. Those afternoons became a regular arrangement, with David helping Amy with homework at our kitchen table while I finished my shift at the accounting firm. My trust in David deepened during Amy's bout with the flu that winter, when his care and concern went far beyond what anyone could reasonably expect from a neighbor. He appeared at our door with homemade soup and children's medicine, offering to run errands so I wouldn't have to leave Amy's side while she was sick. When her fever spiked in the middle of the night and I panicked about whether to call an ambulance, David was the first person I thought to call for advice. He talked me through taking her temperature properly and stayed on the phone while I decided whether emergency care was necessary, his calm voice cutting through my maternal anxiety with practical guidance. The next morning, he showed up with orange juice and children's books, sitting beside Amy's bed and reading to her in different character voices that made her laugh despite feeling miserable. David's integration into our lives reached a new level when he offered to babysit Amy during my first date since the divorce. Marcus, a colleague from work, had been asking me out for weeks, and David's enthusiastic encouragement finally convinced me to accept. He insisted that Amy would be perfectly safe with him, reminding me of all the afternoons they'd spent together and how comfortable she felt in his care. That Saturday evening, I left them planning a movie marathon with popcorn and blankets, Amy bouncing with excitement about their special night, while David assured me to take as much time as I needed. The date went well, but I found myself checking my phone constantly, worried about leaving Amy with someone who wasn't family, despite months of evidence that David was completely trustworthy. When I returned home around midnight, I saw something that changed everything.